So, why should we bother to know about mechanics? It's a cool question. So, I want to show you a video. Most of you would have seen, but just a 3 minutes video it is. So, it will take you from the universe to the atomic level. So, we are now 100,000 kilometers away. So, we are seeing the moon 10 million kilometers away, 100 million kilometers away, 1 billion kilometers, 10 billion kilometers. So we are zooming out. So it's a Oort cloud, 1 light year away. So our neighboring star Alpha Centauri is there, 100 light years away, then 1000 light years away. So what I want to show there, they will zoom out to the uniform universe where you can see the dark space, dark matter, which is connecting the all the web of galaxies, groups of galaxies. Then if you go down through her eye, zoom in, so you can see the red blood cells, then inside the chromosomes, then DNA, then inside the DNA you can see the molecules, then within the molecules the atoms, then the first shell, oneness orbital of the electrons, then emptiness, atomic emptiness between the first shell of the electrons and the nucleus. Then within the nucleus you can see the protons and the neutrons, and within the protons you can see the up and down quarks. So that's what they are going to show in that video. It's an amazing video. If you get time, you can see there in the YouTube. It is available. The title is From Uniform Universe to Quarks. So you will get the feeling further, the insight further why I want to learn about mechanics. But what is connected with mechanics? Mechanics is the motion of object. But you may think physics is different. No, what we are reading here is everything is about the motion of objects, from the particles to the heavenly bodies. So that's what from the history or all around humankind wants to study. While studying that, they realized in the nature is holding some secrets. Because of these secrets, when you are exploring, they started to come up with a lot of applications. So physics or mechanics uh, let them to open the gate for a lot of applications, and those applications we are using now in right front of you, the laptops or mobile devices, anything, the communication devices, whatever you take, from medical field, MRI scanning, x-ray machines, electron microscope, anything. This is physics. Physicists have never thought to discover these things or invent these things, but what for they thought is to understand the universe, what is happening around them, to study about the motion of these objects. Then finally they got these things. These are all byproducts, but the pioneering field is physics. So the first thing we'll read about classical mechanics. So whatever we are seeing in your schools, that is Newtonian mechanics, that is a part of classical mechanics. So classical mechanics comprises of Newtonian mechanics, Lagrangian mechanics, Hamiltonian mechanics. But why I'm saying these things, these are all formed the groundwork or the framework for the next development, which is built upon these things. So Newton has provided the groundwork, how we can mathematically study about the motion of an object. So that's what he did. So from that, many mechanics have been developed. So that are all comparison classical. Why they made it classical? Because Einstein has come and told different type of mechanics, that is called relativistic mechanics. So we will see. So classical mechanics, from that, what kind of applications we got? All the machines of the machines or automobiles, and the thermodynamics and fluid mechanics, how the hydraulic machines are working, excavators, dozers, IC engines, everything comes under classical mechanics under the category of fluid mechanics and thermodynamics. So this is one such field having wide applications and including launching of rockets and sending man to the moon. Everything comes under classical mechanics. So from electrodynamics, we can read about the motion of electrons. From that, a wide variety of applications have come. From electromagnetic interactions, electromagnetic forces. From that, we understood electromagnetic waves. So X-rays, radio waves, microwaves, gamma rays, so many things we got it from the electrodynamic study of electrons. So from that, what we got, many applications, what we are using from your Wi-Fi to mobile devices, everything because of this electrodynamics. But it is never thought to do, they never thought to invent those things, but it has developed to study the nature. So that's what mechanics is all about, to study the nature. So relativistic mechanics. It is the mechanics developed by Einstein. He has thought about different kind of thing about time and space. What about Newton thought about time and space? But Einstein has thought differently about time and space. From that, we know what we got. We got special theory of relativity. From that, we know the famous equation E equal to mc square. That he understood energy is equivalent to mass. So what is the use of that? So what we are using, what is the application of that? If you ask me, I will tell you, inside the sun, there is the nuclear fusion. So many hydrogen atoms are combining or fusing and producing the helium atoms. In that process, it is generating the energy. So that energy only we are seeing as the light here. So that is getting radiated and we are getting the heat and light from the sun. This nuclear fusion, initially how it was understood, 4 hydrogen atoms is becoming helium atoms. So 2 helium atoms become, if you measure individual mass of 4 hydrogen atom and multiply and add it, and you take the helium mass and you add it, both will not balance. There is a missing mass. The mass got missed. No explanation for that. So for that explanation, this famous equation given the solution E equal to mc square. The missing mass has converted into energy. So it has given the information that mass can be equivalent of energy. So whatever lost mass, it is released as energy. If you apply this equation E equal to mc square for that equation, for that nuclear fusion reaction, you can understand what is really happening. So it is a breakthrough. Then general theory of relativity about gravity. So whatever classical mechanics, Newtonian mechanics can't explain about some other thing with the motion of the orbital motion of the Mercury or moon. Here our Newton mechanics has said about the elliptical orbit. But the relativistic mechanics, even though it is saying about the elliptical orbit, the precision of the elliptical orbit, how the elliptical orbit is revolving within, for example, 100 years. Within every 100 years, the elliptical orbit is rotating. So that is called precision. That can be explained using relativistic mechanics. So the next is quantum mechanics. So the development of quantum mechanics has given us quantum computers. So now we know the applications I'm telling. We all know digital computers, that is based on binary digits, ones and zeros. But quantum computers is going to be, or it's depending on qubits, quantum binary digits. But it is not binary, two things. It's having 3 states, not ones and zeros. There is a third state. So quantum computers will be the future thing. So our old computers is going to be replaced by the quantum supercomputers. So on quantum tunneling, which has given the one more application called flash memory. So you are all using flash memory nowadays, that in your pen drive, hard disk, everything. That device got invented, or that application has been exploited from the research of quantum mechanics. Then atomic physics, everything you know, what is happening inside the atoms. So with the atoms and the molecules, they developed the X-ray crystallography to study the atoms, and from that molecular spectroscopy, from that molecular biology. So from molecular biology, now we know DNA and development of genetics, everything. So it is all happened because of atomic physics and molecular physics. Then nuclear physics. So as I said, the reaction happening inside the sun, core of the sun, nuclear fusion reaction. And the same thing we are nowadays seeing on the earth as nuclear power plant. We are harnessing that nuclear fusion reaction and gaining that energy. And the magnetic effect of nuclei, that is called magnetic resonance. The magnetic resonance having wide application in the medical field as MRI scan, magnetic resonance imaging. That has been, that application we got it because of the deep study of nuclear physics. So these are all the advancement happen because we bothered about the mechanics of the objects surrounding us. So it may be the macro or micro or quantum. So we only bothered about why these things are happening. So only the pioneering research opened up all these applications and the supporting field. So development of all these fields needs the mathematics. So mathematics also got been pulled by these physics, pulled off, that is lifted off. That old mathematics got lifted off by the development of physics and created the demand for new mathematical technique and new computing techniques. So we know all the computers, everything. So to give you further insight or to make you to fall in love with physics, so let me show you few scientists here. So she is Margaret Hamilton. She is standing next to this pile of books. This book is nothing but a quotes in 1960. These are all the quotes written for the flight software. What flight? They are sending man to the moon, Apollo 11 mission. For that flight software, these programs has been typed. These are all the coding books. And she is the director of that software team, and she is in the department of MIT, and MIT had a contract with NASA, and they developed this program, software program for the flight. So during that development, there was not the technology to store the computer program. So they developed the technology also. So it is called rope memory. They developed the rope memory and they formed the assembly programming version. So assembly programming version also they developed. See how the physics has led to the development of supporting fields. The physics is demanding. And this Catherine Johnson, she already expired, and she is the mathematician, and she worked out the orbital mechanics for the capsule, the orbiter, to revolve around the moon. So for that, she worked out it. It's a heavy equation, and she done it by hand with the mechanical calculator. And it has helped the NASA to send a man to the moon. These are all I'm saying to inspire you. And latest, Dr. Katie Bowman. Why she is so much amazed? Because the image is getting reconstructed. What image is this? This is the image of a black hole. So image of the black hole is getting reconstructed from the enormous mountainous amount of data collected from the telescopes throughout the globe. All around the globe, they collected the data and they processed the data. That is around 4 petabytes. Petabytes means 4 million and billion bytes. So you can see here the hard drives, what she is holding here. So these are all the hard drives, some weigh around several pounds, and this has been transported and they've taken the data, processed the data, and they've done so many analysis and techniques and imaging techniques. And finally, they developed the algorithm and they reconstructed the image of a black hole. So this is the breakthrough you will get through physics. Physics is demanding. Physics is pioneering field. So pioneers, they are the frontiers. They will research what they're ultimately looking for. They're looking for absolute truth in the universe. Why we are existing. What for this vast universe is existing. Where we are heading. What is happening all around us. That is the biggest question they're asking, and they're researching and they're going. Along with that, everything is getting developed, and whatever we are enjoying because of the applications we got from it. So that's it. So now we know what is the role of physics in our life. Okay, so this course is about our bird's eye view of a course. From the falling of an apple to the free fall of the moon. Why I'm saying falling of the moon, even though it is not touching the earth, at the end of the course you will understand. So apple also is falling and moon also falling. So that is what this course is about. Okay, fine. So now we will see the summary of yesterday's session. So what we learned in yesterday's session, force is not required to keep things moving. That is the first thing we learned. So widely, 63% of the people who polled, they believed force is required to keep things moving. But what we know now, or what Newton is saying, force is not required to keep things moving. Force is required only to change the speed of the object which is moving. So it may be moving at a uniform speed or it may be at rest. But force is required to change the speed. If the object is red, it is called zero speed. If the object is in motion, it is at some finite speed. So that can happen without a force. An example I can give you. See, this clip is from a Gravity movie. That actress, Sandra Bullock, she is an astronaut there, and she has been hit by an object, and she is moving eternally into the deep space at the same speed and she can't stop by herself. But there is no continuous force is pushing her, but she is moving eternally. Why it is so? Because Newton's first law. Every object with move at a same speed along a straight line without a force. If you want to change it, you need a force. So next, any doubt you can stop me. Please feel free to stop because I am not a teacher and this is not a class and I am not here to complete your syllabus. I'm here to inspire you. So any doubt, you get the concepts clear, then we will move next slide. Okay. So here we are not in a hurry to push the slides. I'm here to clear your fundamental basic misconception here. What you learn from the school, there are a lot of misconception that I have been explored, that after completing the college only, I understood a lot of misconception is running around. Okay. So next point is what we discussed yesterday is Mars inheritably has this laziness. It's possessing this laziness to change its state. So I use the plural word states because it's maybe the state of rest or state of uniform motion along a straight line. I'm keep on insisting uniform straight line because you have to monitor both the magnitude and direction of the speed. So if it is having a same speed and same direction, that also having the inertia, and it don't require a force to keep that inertia. Inertia is existing because of the mass, that laziness. It is there in the state, it will be continue to exist in the state. To change that state only, we need a force because inertia is resisting you. So you are giving the counter force to change that. So force is required to balance the inertia. So that's what we have seen yesterday. So we have seen this experiment. As said yesterday, it was done by Galileo, but that may be the story running around. But it is good to know, and it has been reconstructed by Brian Greene in one show. So here you see this chamber is completely vacuum, and in that the feather and the bowling ball both falling at the same rate. That means both falling at the same speed at every interval of time, but the speed is changing. Before hitting the ground, what speed, and before started to fall, what speed, both are different. It may start from 0, 1, 2, 3, then like that speed is increasing. But at every instant of time, but the speed is same for both the object, even though masses are different. Why? Because as I said earlier, mass is possessing this laziness. Here you see the bowling ball. The bowling ball is having bigger mass, it's possessing bigger laziness. And the feather is having smaller mass, it's possessing smaller laziness. So the inertia varies. So to counteract the inertia, your force varies. So the gravitational force varies depending upon the laziness, and the laziness is depending upon the mass. So that's what it's all about, this experiment. So the force is varying according to the mass, so that it's falling at the same rate. What I mean by same rate, at every interval of time, the velocity is changing at the same rate. For example, every second, 10 meter, second, 20 meter. Like that, velocities keep on changing. So this is one more example I shown you yesterday. That is how the inertia played here. So he is under the constant velocity, but he is loosely fixed to that vehicle. So he is bound to move straight. That he can't stop that. Even though he wants to stop, but he can't stop that. You are bounded by the laws of physics. Okay, this is about the mass and the inertia we have seen yesterday. And the significance of magnitude and direction of speed also we have seen yesterday. So how magnitude and direction of speed both are equally important. So here I'll show you a mass is moving at a speed v1 in particular direction. So here I use a notation narrow on this label v1. This notation specifies it's having both magnitude and direction. So it is carrying the information of magnitude and direction. That's what it specifies. We will see deeply about what is the vector. Now we just remember this. This specifies you this variable possesses the information of magnitude and direction. So it is aware of it. So it is moving at a speed v1 in this direction from right to left. And suddenly I am switching on this force. You think it's a force controlled by some electronic device. I am switching on this force. and this force is perpendicular to this direction. What will happen to that object? Anybody? Hello? Yesterday, who were available? Anybody? What will happen to that object which is moving at a constant speed at a constant direction? Suddenly, if I switch on the force, what will happen to that object? And the force also perpendicular to the direction. If I switch on the force, that object started to change the direction. So initially it was moving at a straight line direction. When I switch on the force, the object started to change the direction. So as long as that force is there, it will never allow the object to go in the straight line. It will be continuously deflecting. You remember the word deflecting from the straight line motion. Every object, when it is moving at a uniform speed at a that's called constant direction or along a straight line or a uniform direction, when a force exists, it will continue to change that depending upon the direction of force. If the force is existing along the motion, it will push further faster. If the force is existing perpendicular to the direction of motion, it will deflect. It will change the direction of motion. So here the motion direction of motion got changed. So here it's supposed to want to, again, inertia plays a role. Again, the mass wants to go like this, but the force will never allow. It will again turn it, deflect the direction. See, again it deflected. But again, the mass wants to go like this, but will never allow. So every time you are counteracting the inertia with a force. So if you give a continuous force, the object will start to rotate, circulate. So the continuous force is required to keep the object in circular motion, because every time you are balancing or fighting with the inertia. So now I switch off the force, the object gone straight down. So it is like tangential to this motion. So every time we can draw a tangential to the path, that object wants to go in the straight line to the path. That is the inertial direction. It wants to go there. It feels to go there. It desires to go there because it doesn't want to change. But the force is always changing its direction. So here force only changed the direction. It never changed the magnitude of the speed. But even though I use the notation V1 and V2 here, they are used to differentiate. They are different in direction, but having same magnitude. So modulus of V1 vector is equal to modulus of V2 vector. That means they are magnitude-wise same, but I use the different notation to show you they are different in direction. So now you can see so this is about the formation of moon. So initially 4.5 billion years ago, that big asteroid which formed from the dust and gas of the protoplanetary disk that has been come from the supernova of the star. That is the death of a star. From the death of the star, dust and gas has come. From that only Earth has formed rocky object. Then one asteroid has come and collided with the Earth. So when an asteroid has come and collided with the Earth, this asteroid broken into pieces. And these pieces wants to go away. Because as per the Newton's third law, if it is coming and hitting, it will go because of the reaction. Because it has come and hit in forward direction because of the huge mass of the Earth can't move. So it is pushed the fragments away. So you can see the fragments are going away. So it should just go off. But what happened? Due to the gravitational force of the Earth, that object started to circulate. As I shown in the previous slide, how the force makes the objects to change the direction. So actually our moon wouldn't have existed if the force was not there. Because of the gravitational force of Earth, that is in the place what it should be. Because of the gravitational force of Earth. Because it is kept in the direction. It wants to go away. But it was pulled. Its direction got changed. And it is all along is circulating as long as the gravitational force is existing. If the gravitational force disappears, the moon just will fly away tangentially, away from the Earth, not radially. You remember, the moon will fly away tangentially. As I shown previous, it will go away tangentially. If the force got switched off, it will move away tangentially, not radially. It will not go away radially like this. In this direction, never go. When you switch off the force, it will go in this direction because its desire or inertia is along this direction, straight line, as Newton said. It wants to move in the straight line. So its motion is, inertial motion is here. So you are diverting the motion by force. When you switch off the force, it will go in this direction, not radially. So there is one more key point you can understand here. So as I said yesterday, so that is the summary of the yesterday's session. And we have seen quantitatively the force causes change in speed, I said yesterday. And to make you to understand, the force not only change the speed, it also change the direction of speed. I have shown so many videos. So in summary also now I explain. So the newcomers would have understand force not only cause change in speed, but also cause change in direction of speed. So the force is causes change in direction of speed and change in magnitude of speed. And also force depends upon the mass. So as I shown you from the Galileo experiment, the forces depends upon the mass because the mass possesses the laziness, and the laziness demands a force to change its inertial action or inertial motion. If it is at rest, it continues to be at rest. If it is in motion, it wants to be in the motion in a straight line at a uniform speed. So force is coming into picture to change that. So it depends upon the mass, which mass you are talking about. Then force is inversely proportional to the time taken. That is, in this less time, you want to change the speed of the same magnitude of the same mass, you have to give a bigger force. But you are taking a bigger time interval, you have to give a lesser force for the given mass or for the same change of speed. So force is inversely proportional to time taken. So forces depends on these factors. Everyone agree upon on that? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I got one confirmation from Prajwal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So no doubt in this. Anybody wants to dispute? Okay, I'll move ahead. Anyone who have to dispute, just raise your hand. We can stop and we can discuss further. You can clear your concepts, misunderstandings here, anything. So force is required to change the magnitude of speed and magnitude of direction of speed, and also it depends upon the mass. Mass possesses the laziness. So how much laziness you are dealing with, you can measure from the mass, and it is inversely proportional to time taken. So more the time, less force, less time, more force to move the same mass and for the same change of speed. So now how to incorporate? Every time we can't write speed and direction of speed. Okay, so how to change this word in a single notation? How to incorporate both magnitude and direction of speed in a single quantity? So see here, Newton has created a demand for one more mathematical tool, but that time it was not developed. But he already written in his first law, he is speaking about uniform motion in a straight line. What do you mean by straight line? He is telling it should be in the same direction. When you change the direction, you need a force, he is telling. So he creates a demand for a new mathematical technique so that we have to monitor both the magnitude and direction of a quantity. So he created a demand. So now that should be met by the development of a new mathematics. So there comes our new mathematical tool, vector. So vector got developed afterwards, but initially it was not dealt with this vector quantity. So with the clumsy mathematics, they dealt everything. So now vector has made our life easy. So vector will monitor both magnitude and direction for you. It will keep the information, both magnitude and direction of a physical quantity, what we are talking about. So I already explained you this is what is vector. So speed, the speed is ignorant of direction. It is not aware of direction. It is unaware of direction. It only knows the magnitude of direction. It only knows the magnitude of speed. That is how much amount of speed it is carrying. For example, 10 km per hour, 20 km per hour. But which direction? It is not aware. But velocity is aware of the direction also. So speed is defined as rate of change of position. Change of position will give you the length, but not the direction. Which direction the length is showing or the length is existing in a given frame of reference. Which direction? The length is just a length. You can measure in numbers. But velocity is defined as rate of change of position vector. So if you are in +1 and +2, you already know what is position vector. But anyhow, I'll try to give maximum example possible to make it to clear the concept of what is position vector and how it keeps the information of magnitude and direction. So here comes our smiley man. He's asking, so what? What's the big deal? So now I will show you some example how this vector keeps the information of magnitude and direction. So in two-dimensional Cartesian coordinates, everybody know the Cartesian coordinates is nothing but x-axis and y-axis. X in the horizontal direction, the y in the vertical direction. Here everybody know how to plot a graph. You take that axis coordinate, it's called coordinates. So now consider a motion from a position. You mark a point on the graph. So any point on the graph, the first point at time 0, I'm calling it as x1, y1. When I start at the time, when I start to monitor the time, like I'm holding the stopwatch. When I press the time, it starts to ticking. When the time is lapsing, when it is from 0, it has gone to time t. So at the time t, it is at the position or point x2, y2 on the graph. So it has made some movement. The change of position has happened. So speed, as per the definition of speed, if you calculate, just blindly calculate, as per the definition of speed, you don't use your common sense. From the definition of speed, change of position by time taken. So what will you get? The length, the line connecting the 2 points. From the geometry, you will get the length. It is from your geometry class, you know how to calculate the length of a line. So you will get the difference of the coordinate and square root of it. You will get the magnitude and divided by time. Here what it gives you nothing about the direction, only gives you what is the length of the line connecting the 2 points divided by the time. Length doesn't possess the direction. It only holds the magnitude. So we got the magnitude of the term here. That is, only we got how much time it has taken to cross that length. That's all we got information. So which direction we never got. Now we will apply the definition of velocity here. Change of position vectors by time taken. What I mean by position vectors, I'll show you the graph here. So this is the point x1, y1. So now in the same coordinate, x-axis and y-axis, I am associating the unit vector, that is I vector. So what I mean by unit vector, it is having the magnitude 1 and is having direction along the x-axis. So if I multiply I vector with any quantity, it will never change whatever around the x-axis, because in x-axis everything is along the x direction and it is magnitude is 1. So 1, if you multiply with anything, nothing will change. So I defined a vector here. It is a unit vector along the x-axis and it is having a magnitude 1. So here I am defining a vector j vector. So j vector along the y-axis, as usual, it is having magnitude 1. It is along the direction of y-axis. I associated these vectors to the coordinates. You know the coordinates from your school, from your geometry, x, y axis. What I am doing here, just associating these terms with that. So you call this as xi vector, that is along the x-axis, and yj vector along the y-axis. So whatever I measure along this, I am going to add these vectors to specify the direction. Now I am pointing this as x1, y1 in your graph. So from the origin to this point, whatever arrow I am drawing, it will give me the position vector of the point. So the point also got the direction. So now you see the difference. The point also got the direction here. But initially in our previous example, we only call it as a point. We never know which direction that point exists in the plane. Correct? X1, y1 will be existing. Anywhere it can exist, but you never know what direction. But here we can monitor the direction also. So from the origin, I mark the point. So it is specifying me the direction of the position. So this is called position vector. It gives me which direction this point lies. Then it is moving from x1, y1 to x2, y2. So I'm calling it as R2 vector. So as our definition of velocity says, the change of position vectors. So the change of position vector. So final position vector minus initial position vector. So what we will get, so what is R2 vector here? So R2 vector, from the triangle of addition vector, the length along the x-axis and the length along the y-axis with the direction. So the length along the x-axis will be x2 into I unit vector, and the length along the y-axis will be y2. And what about the direction? J vector. So R2 vector equal to x2 I vector plus y2 j vector. So similarly, R1 vector is equal to x1 I vector plus y1 j vector. So now we got the position vector. You subtract this here and take the unit vectors outside. So now you can see the difference. The definition of speed what it has given, but the definition of velocity what it has given. It has given you one more vector because x2 minus x1 is one more quantity, one more magnitude along the unit vector I, and y2 minus y1 is one more quantity along the unit vector j. If you add these two vectors, you will get a resultant vector. So that resultant vector only we are getting here. If we add this from the again triangle of addition of vectors, so you are getting the resultant vector. So from the velocity, we can get the vector as the distance. So from vector, we can calculate the magnitude. So 11th standard, 12th standard guys know how to calculate a magnitude for a vector and how to calculate a direction for a vector. I'll show you how. So now we got this vector R vector, resultant vector. How will you calculate this length? As usual, it's not a big science, just the Pythagoras theorem. Take this length square and take this length square and square root it. So you will get the resultant vector. So how about direction of this vector? Tan theta. Take the opposite side and adjacent side. Take the ratio. Find the angle. So you will get the direction where it is standing. So this is how we monitor the direction and the magnitude of speed. So anybody has any doubt here about vectors? So now I explained you what is a vector and how this vector helps the quantity velocity to monitor both magnitude and speed. So we changed our definition, how Newton called uniform speed along a straight line. That whole phrase has been changed by uniform velocity. Here onwards, if you want to reiterate Newton's law, every object continue in its state of rest or uniform velocity, you can say, instead of saying the big phrase what Newton said, uniform motion along a straight line. That has been replaced by a single word, uniform velocity. So now I'll write this, change in speed and change in direction is caused by force, and force depends upon the mass because of the laziness is depends on mass, and the force force is inversely proportional to time taken, and collectively we can write force F as mass times change in velocity by time taken, because these are directly proportional, time is inversely proportional. So we can write collectively mass times change in velocity by time taken. This is not a big thing he has done. He just observed what is happening around him. But at the time, it was the big thing, the big breakthrough. That forces depends on these factors: speed, direction of speed, mass of the object, and what time you are calculating this change. So forces depends on these factors. It is quantitative formulation. So we shall write collectively like this. So mass times change in velocity can be written as final velocity minus initial velocity. Change in velocity, final velocity minus initial velocity. So now this final velocity minus initial velocity by time taken is called acceleration. So force, we can say mass times acceleration, or otherwise I'll bring the mass inside. So mass time final velocity minus mass time initial velocity. Now this term, mass times velocity, I already discussed in previous session. The mass time velocity is called, anybody? What is mass times velocity? Anybody wants to say what it holds, that property, mass times velocity? It's a beautiful property, and it is having the conservation property in the nature also, this mass times velocity. Yesterday's session we discussed. Yes, momentum. So mass time velocity is the momentum. So that is also, as I say, inertia depends upon the mass and also speed. If it is moving at a uniform speed, there exists some kind of inertia. So uniform speed and the mass collectively possess that inertia. If you want to change that, that inertia will offer you the resistance. For that only the force is coming here. Force will change the laziness. So the momentum will give you the biggest laziness, and from the momentum you are changing to one more momentum, it will offer you the resistance. So we are bringing the force here to change that resistance or to counteract that resistance offered by inertia. So I can write final momentum minus initial momentum. See, everywhere I use the notation vector, because since velocity is vector, whatever scalar you multiply, that also will be a vector with a bigger magnitude but along the same direction. A simple concept. Because vector is specifying particular direction, you multiply with any scalar, that is magnitude, only the magnitude will get multiplied, but direction nothing will happen. To change the direction, you need some kind of operation that you will study in vector algebra. Hello, am I clear? My voice is clear? Because I'm getting internet connection is unstable here. So momentum is defined as I told before, mass times velocity. So we can write force as final momentum minus initial momentum by time taken. A rate of change of momentum. This is called rate of change of momentum. This is only you have read in your school as second law of Newton. So second law of Newton is force is defined as rate of change of momentum. So how the second law we got? From the first law, just we given the quantitative formulation of the first law, we got the information from the first law and we made a quantitative summation or formulation for the first law, and we ended up with second law. See, both are connected. First law has given us the information about speed, direction of speed, how much significant, and the inertia, mass, everything it has given. So from that we got this second law. Second law is quantitative formulation. It is given quantitative explanation for the first law. So now I'll give you one example. Okay, let me not show these wordings. If I show the figure, you can get it. This is an apple tree. So there is an apple. It was attracted by a gravitational force 2 Newton. And I given the initial position of the apple, the x-axis and the y-axis. So x-axis 1 meter and the y-axis 2 meter. So what is the position? 1, 2. The position of the apple is 1, 2. So I given the position of the apple and the force acting on the apple and the mass of the apple and the time taken to reach the ground. That is 0.6 seconds. Now I'll ask you, after the time 0.6 seconds, what will be the final position and what will be the final velocity? So you have to give me two data, two information, two answers here. I have given you the information of force acting on the apple. I have given you the position of the apple and the force acting on the apple and the mass of the apple and the time taken to reach the ground. So what I'm asking is, what is the final position and the final velocity of the apple? You can use second law of Newton. That is the hint I given you. Second law of Newton you can use. Anybody? Everybody can try. Just you can write down the Newton second law and you can calculate what will be the final velocity. 0, 0. So Arun J Kumar is telling 0, 0. That means it will come here, Arun. The apple will come to this point because this is the frame origin I fixed here. So 0, 0 means x also will become 0, y also will become 0. Do you think the apple really come here? Yes. 0, 2. Okay, fine. 0, 2. The apple will fall at the position of 0, 2, final position. At a time, you have to ask the time also. At what time I'm asking? I'm asking after 0.6 second. But what about in 0.3 second? Can you tell me, Arun? Where it will be, the apple, in 0.3 second? Anybody? Just a common sense. At 0.6 second, it will be at 1, 0. 0.5, 2. That means x-axis you are telling it will go to 0.5. That means 0.5, 2 will be here. Correct? So in 0.3 seconds, where it will be actually? It will not be here, I doubt.
2, 0.5.
2, 0.5. So y will be 2. That means X will be 2. No, X will not be 2. X will be 2 means it will go here. 2 comma 0.5. X will be 2 means it will go here, and 0.5 means it will be here. I don't think so.
Sir, 0.5 comma 0.5.
The X, you can say X axis will never change, right? When it is falling down, the X axis will never change. What will change? Only the Y axis, because the motion is along the Y axis. So only the Y axis you will get the change, but the X axis remains same. So X you can keep constant, 1 comma whatever figure you can say. Now you say what will be the figure? 1 comma 1 comma 1. Okay, fine. That is the straight guess, obviously, because 0.6 second it is at 2 meter, so 0.3 second it will be at 1 meter. That will be the direct guess. But I'll tell you that's wrong. It will not be at 1 meter. Why it is so? Because the velocity is not constant. You assumed here velocity is constant. When it is falling with same velocity you are taken. So you are considering for every interval of time it will cover the same distance. So from that you are telling when I reduce the time, you are reducing the distance in the same proportion. When I say 0.6 second, it is in 2 meter. When I say 0.3, you are making it off because you are reducing in the same ratio. That will work out when the velocity is uniform, when the velocity is constant, when the displacement is taking place at the equal interval of time, same displacement. But you know, as long as this guy is here, he will never allow you to keep a constant speed. This guy will always try to increase the speed. So what is the role of force? He will try to change the speed. From the rest of the apple is at rest on the twig and it is falling at a what rate? It is falling at some rate. I don't want to disclose now. It's falling at some rate, but it's not having same speed. Initially, it is at 0 speed. When it is touching the ground, you told me 6 meter per second. So it has changed. How it has changed, that we can see. That is only acceleration. The acceleration will tell you how this velocity got changed from 0 to
Acceleration due to gravity. G.
yes, the acceleration due to gravity caused that apple from the rest to 6 meter per second. The speed got changed, and how it has changed, how it has gone from 0 to 6. It has gone either 1, 2, 3, or in every second it has jumped. That we are going to see now. So that is only real calculation. This is not the real calculation. Okay. In this example, you understood one more thing. So we can't get the distance in such as you're thinking, because that will work out for uniform speed, uniform velocity. But since force is there, you will never expect for uniform velocity. Force will change the velocity. Okay, fine. So my question is here only a final portion, final velocity. If you're saying 6 meter per second and 1 comma 0, that is the answer for my question. But you understood other things also. What is really happening? So I see here my answer 6 meters and 1 comma 0. Whoever said it is well and good, but you have to try. Not if you're not trying now, also you can note down the problem and you can try later. If you want, you can take the screenshot and you can try later. Here I am saying our answer will be different if we consider one more significant input along with the above data. So whatever information I given here, if I include one more variable, your answer will be different. What variable it will be? Any guess?
G.
No, G is not a variable. G is caused by this force. But I am
Sir.
saying the input variable. If I change one input variable, my result will be changing. Do you think final velocity will change for the same force, same mass, for the same time? Anybody? You can say in your chat box. Do you think final velocity will change for the same force, same mass, and same time? It will never. Whatever other variable include, final velocity is not going to change. But position will change. I'll show you why. So now the same problem, I am using the wind velocity here. So there is a wind of velocity 2 meter per second, the constant wind. It is moving at the same rate, 2 meter per second. So the apple is about to fall. It's having the initial velocity of 2 meter per second. So now your problem changed differently. What you have seen as a straight line motion, because of the initial velocity, the motion got changed. It has become a some curvilinear motion. It is tracing some curve. I will not tell what this curve, that you can determine now afterwards. It is not circular or is not cubic. Some curve it's tracing now. And the position also changed. But the final velocity will never change, because the force remains same, the time remains same, and the vertical distance remains same. So the final velocity will never change. So final velocities will change or will not change? I doubt so. The final vertical velocity will never change, but the resultant velocity will change. Because of the horizontal initial velocity 2 meter per second and the final velocity 6 meter per second, and the initial velocity will remain same because there is no force in this direction. So there is no change of speed. The speed will remain constant in this direction. And because of the force pulling it down, the speed will vary along this direction. It has started from 0 in y-axis. It is reaching at the ground 2 meter per second horizontally. At the ground also, before hitting ground, it will be having. So now you can see here, because of the initial wind velocity, our final velocity got changed, our position also got changed. So the crucial thing to note here, so initial position, initial velocity, and force acting on the object, and the mass of an object. So these are all the things required to calculate what will be the final position and final velocity. Without these things, if anybody is not giving initial velocity, they have to declare it initial velocity is 0. If they are not declaring, they are giving insufficient data. So in reasoning, you can say it's an insufficient data has been provided to you. You can't give the right answer to them. If anybody is giving only initial position and force acting on the object and mass of an object, and they are asking you the final position at a particular time and final velocity, the data is insufficient. You have to ask, what about the initial velocity? So if they say they are declaring 0, then fine. Otherwise, something is existing there. So you can't determine the final position of the object without these 4 inputs. So I want to show here as last thing. So what is happened here? So if you shoot the cannon, see, I shown you here. Everything started with 0. Now when the cannon is shooting the cannonball, it is going in a trajectory because of the gravity. It is changing the vertical velocity. It is started with 0, and see the vertical velocity is changing. Velocity y direction is changing. It is changing from 0. Only just note down the figure what I am showing. So it is changing from 0 to 120 vertical velocity because of the force is acting in this direction. Wherever force acts, the speed changes. That's all our logic, Newton's law. So because of the gravitational force, the speed got changed in y direction. What about the x direction? It was shot with some 100 meter per second horizontally. It is continuously moving in 100 meter per second only all the time. You can see here. See, all the time it is moving with the same length. You can see the length of the arrow. The length of the arrow in horizontal direction never changed. So only the length of the arrow in vertical direction increasing to show you graphically that vertical velocity is increasing, horizontal velocity remains constant. If there is no gravitational force, the cannonball will go straight, as Newton's first law, inertia. It started with 100 meter per second. It continues to go in the same direction if there is no gravitational force. If it is not shooting because of some failure, the cannonball is not shooting, the cannon is not shooting, it's not firing up, then the ball just dropped down. Just drop down, a free fall. This is also free fall only, just drop down vertically. With this, change its velocity. But if both are existing, that this is also working fine and gravity also existing, you will get this trajectory path. Are you clear? Any doubt in this? We can see deep tomorrow. In a given direction. So you see, the force is not changing the speed in the horizontal direction. As long as the vertical thing, it is not changing the speed in the horizontal direction. The speed in the horizontal direction remains same throughout the motion. So you have to monitor the direction also. As I said, direction